1 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I'm at the wrong time now. 12 o'clock. I'm here with the Jake Miller. And today we're talking about the 4 MVPs of remote blended learning from one of your awesome EduDuctTape mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're here at TCCA 2020, not 2019, right? I just for those of you that are just hopping in right now, I just asked Susie right before we started the stream. I said I want to put out a tweet really quick. Is it TCCA 19 or TCCA 2019? And she's like, well, it's 2020 because the year is 2020. And I'm like, this year. I'm just trying to block it out of my mind right now.
You're just in denial. You can't right now. It's fine. I get it.
Oh, this year. All right, so I have up on the screen here, as you guys can see, the title slide of this presentation, which is the 4 MVPs of blended and remote learning from an educational duct tape mindset. And there's a link at the bottom there, jakemiller.net/4MVPs. I'm going to put it in the StreamYard here too. That's actually the private chat, so that's not going to do any good, is it? Okay, so you guys will have to see that there. I'm going to jump over to comments. No, I can't see it. You guys will have to put it in the chat. You guys help each other. Susie's probably got your back. She's probably putting it in there for you. But as she said, my name is Jake Miller, and we're going to talk about what my 4 MVP educational technology tools are for you, whether you're in a remote learning setting or a blended learning setting. And by the way, to me, blended learning does not mean half the time at home and half the time at school. Blended learning is a phrase we've been using for years in education to mean a combination of using educational technology and face-to-face analog, as we can call them, activities, right? And we're going to do this from an educational duct tape mindset. So some of you might be thinking, okay, Jake, how did you identify these 4 tools as MVPs? We're going to get to that. And what is an educational duct tape mindset? And we're going to get to that as well. But first, before we get to that, a little bit of background here. My name, as we said already, is Jake Miller. And as you can see on these slides here, jump forward here. As you can see on my slide here, there is this link for this session as well as my contact information. After the session, feel free to reach out to me, ask me any questions you might have. If you try out new things in the classroom, please do feel free to share them. You could use any of that contact information on the screen that you'd like to go with. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing from educators. I am an educational technology geek. I geek out about educational technology. It is my absolute passion. I am so excited about educational technology. So really, I don't mind you sending me a message and saying, hey, Jake, I'm trying out EdPuzzle today. It's going great. Like, I would love to hear about that, okay? So please do feel free to reach out to me. As I mentioned, not only am I a geek for educational technology, and not only is that my passion, but I also am an educator itself, right? I teach science, 8th grade science this year. I've been a technology integration coach for the last 4 years. This year, due to some budget cuts, moved back into the classroom. And it's kind of fun to take all the things I've been trying to sell the teachers I work with to use in their classrooms. Now I get to use them in mine. We're virtual right now, but we're hoping to go back to at least a hybrid setting in the near future. But I teach 8th grade science, but my true passion is working with educators to use educational technology in their classrooms. At that link that you see on your screen there, jakemiller.net/4MVPs, not only can you get to these slides and this contact information, but you also have the opportunity to win one of a selection of giveaways that I do in every presentation I do. So at jakemiller.net/4MVPs, there is a form that you could fill out that will enter you in to win one of 2 prizes that I do for every session I do. Okay, the first prize is a sticker that I will send to you in the mail. I promise that I will Clorox wipe them first, and I'll Clorox wipe the envelope before I actually send it out in the mail, just in case. I'm pretty sure I'm clean and clear, but just in case, I will Clorox wipe everything before sending it to you. And you get to choose what sticker you get if you're the winner. You could choose the correct sticker, in my opinion, which says that it's pronounced GIF with a hard G, like a gift, or you could get the incorrect sticker, which says that it's pronounced Jif, like the peanut butter. I will send you that one willingly if you choose it. I will think you're wrong, but I'll still be your friend. Actually, truth be told, you can see a black book back there. I keep a list of every educator who ever attends a professional development I do in that book. It's going to be pretty long after today, I think. And I put a frowny face by anybody who chooses the peanut butter sticker. But still, I'll still be nice to you if you choose it. The other prize that I give away in a session is registration in online learning opportunities I do called GIF a Day. I'm not currently running one right now, a little busy with all this pandemic teaching and virtual learning going on, but I do hope to. Oh, my clicker is trying to update its software while I'm clicking with it. I'm not good timing their clicker. But I do run these online learning opportunities where the registrants, the participants, receive a GIF in their email from me every weekday morning for a series of weekdays to learn a new skill within one set of skills. So currently I run it on Google Sheets, and the registrants get one GIF on a Google Sheets skill in their inbox for, I think it's 29 straight weekdays. One day they might learn how to filter, and one day they might learn how to sort, and one day they might learn how to enter a formula, but then by the end, they're a master with Google Sheets. Okay, so that's one of the two prizes I'll give away is registration in one of those upcoming cohorts. And you do that all at that link there, jakemiller.net/4MVPs. Okay, also at that link is access to these very slides that we're looking at right now. Okay, for the 4 MVPs of remote and blended learning from a hashtag EduDuctTape mindset. So let's talk about what an EduDuctTape mindset is. Well, that's the mindset from my educational duct tape podcast, but also just the mindset that I talk about when I'm talking educational duct tape. So it is the title of the podcast that I host, but it's also a mindset that I take whenever I'm thinking about how to integrate educational technology into learning. And this past spring, after 3 or 4 months of educators in straight up survival mode using technology to handle the crazy pandemic education situation that we were in. After that, I felt like we had a little break during the summer, not much of a break, but a little break where I could kind of reevaluate and say, what do we need? What are the tools that educators could learn about and that are high yield, high leverage tools they could start using in their classrooms, virtual or in person? And the mindset that I took to that is this educational duct tape mindset. Okay, so let's talk about where that mindset comes from. Well, one story that it comes from involves this bounce house that you see on your screen right here. We have this bounce house in our house. I'm in the basement right now. It's in our basement storage room, which kind of right behind me, all folded up. But years ago, my wife showed me a picture of this bounce house on her cell phone. It was mid-November, and she showed me a picture of it as we were cleaning the kitchen at night. Our 3 kids were in bed, sleeping peacefully, or maybe not so peacefully, who knows? And we were cleaning the kitchen and packing lunches, and she showed me this picture of this bounce house and said, "I'd like to get this for the kids for Christmas." And I looked at it and I said, "What? That bounce house has an 8-foot diameter. Where in our house would we put an 8-foot diameter inflatable bounce house for our kids to jump in? We can't currently walk through the house without stepping on Legos as it is. Why would we want to add this to the situation?" And she looked at me and she said, "Because it would make them happy." I was like, all right, okay, you win. I guess I can't really argue with that, right? I knew that she probably was going to buy it regardless of what I said. But in this situation, she had an argument that won. It would make our kids ecstatic. So she placed the order that night. The bounce house showed up on December 24th, delivered by the man in the big red suit, not inflated. Ugh. And that began the love-hate relationship between me and this bounce house, because I was the guy who had to inflate it. I hated that part, but I loved how happy my kids were on Christmas morning when they played with it. And then I hated what a pain it was to walk around, but then I loved how happy they were the next day when they played in it. But then I hated that the following day, 2 days after Christmas, the kids were over it and it was in their way, just like it was in my way. And they were over it just like every other Christmas toy within 2 days of Christmas. So I hated that I was the guy who had to clean it up. I was the guy who had to open up all the air valves on it. I was the guy who had to roll around on top of it like a 6'4" rolling pin back and forth to get all the air out of it. I was the guy who had to fold it up and put it in the basement. I was also the guy who had to get it back out a couple months later when they wanted to play in it. But I loved how happy it made them on that boring February day when it was snowing outside and they needed something to do. But I hated that a day later it was in their way again, and I was a guy who had to roll around on top of it like a 6'4" rolling pin, fold it up and put it away. And this love-hate relationship continued over the years, inflating, happy, deflating, rolling around, 6'4" rolling pin, annoyed, folding it up, putting it away, bring it back out. So inflate, deflate, rolling pin over and over again. So love, hate, until one day I was inflating the bounce house and I heard this noise and I became Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. You know Mr. Burns from The Simpsons? I went, yes. excellent, because I knew I could finally throw the darn thing away. And then I looked over at my kids and they were giggling at the noise. And I was like, oh, look at them. They're adorable. I can't throw it away. I have to fix it for them. So I needed something to fix it with. And what did I use to fix it? Go ahead and try to guess. Duct tape, right? Yeah, I used duct tape to patch that bounce house. Duct tape was the perfect tool to patch that little hole. Truth be told, the bounce house had actually come with a patching kit, but my wife found it on the floor one day as she was cleaning up, didn't know what it was, and threw it away. And we've all been there, right? So anyhow, we used duct tape, and duct tape was the perfect tool in this situation. Now, it's important to note that it wasn't our goal to use duct tape that day, right? It was our goal to patch that bounce house. And so I like to think about things from a goal and tools point of view, right? Our goal in that situation was to patch a hole in a bounce house. The tool in that situation was duct tape. That's also the same perspective that I like to take to educational technology. The perspective is that educational technology is at its most useful when it is not the goal of the lesson, but a tool used to solve a problem or meet a goal. Educational technology is at its most useful when it's not the goal of the lesson, but a tool used to solve a problem or meet a goal. Just like that duct tape, right? I didn't wake up that day thinking, today I'm going to use duct tape. I woke up that day thinking, today I'm going to play with my kids, right? And the bounce house became a tool for that. And the duct tape became a tool for patching the hole in the bounce house. But I didn't think I'm going to use duct tape today. Just thought I'm going to play with the kids. And that's the way it should work in our classrooms too. We shouldn't start a day thinking, today I'm going to use Flipgrid, or today I'm going to use Nearpod, or today I'm going to use Scratch. It's okay to use them, and it's okay to know you're going to use them, but they should not be the goal. They should be the tool that we're using in that situation. And about nearly 2 years ago, I turned this into a podcast, the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. And on the podcast, my guest and I talk about different questions a teacher might have. How can I formatively assess my students? Or how can I help my students take ownership over their learning? Or how can I communicate student learning with their parents? Or whatever the question might be, it's a question that a teacher might have. And then my guest and I propose solutions, educational technology tools that they could use in that situation. Okay. Now, those educational technology tools, sometimes the guest has one answer and sometimes I have a different answer. And that's okay. I love showing that not every educator has to use the same technology tools, and that sometimes there's multiple technology tools to solve a problem. Sometimes there's two different ones that are just as good as each other. Sometimes the guest and I each name 3 or 4 tools to show that there's a lot, and we pick the one that best fits our style, our classroom, our students, our technology, our content. We pick the ones that are best for our situation. So it's not always the same tech tool in every classroom. And I could be using a different technology than the other guy who teaches 8th grade science in my school district. And it doesn't mean he's doing bad, and it doesn't mean I'm doing bad. It just means we're doing different. And that actually benefits the kids, right? To receive diverse instruction using diverse tools, that makes the students more ambidextrous in the way they learn and the way that they use technology. And I like that we could use different tools. Okay, so this past spring, as we were closing that horrible spring that we ended off last school year with, I sat down and I thought, what educational technology tools should I support educators in learning to use? Well, what I wanted to do was I wanted to keep from educators having to learn 13 different tools or 20 different tools. And they kind of have had to do that in a lot of situations. I wanted to pick tools that had what I'd call a high yield, meaning you use this one tool and it does this for you and this for you and this for you and this for you and this and this and this and this, so that you spend the hour learning that and you get 7 or 8 benefits out of it, instead of learning this other tool, which is fantastic, but maybe only get 1 or 2 things out of it, right? So what are these high yield tools that are great, whether we're in a blended setting, meaning in person with technology being used, or a remote setting, meaning not in person, leveraging technology for almost everything, or even somewhere in the middle, what we tend to call a hybrid setting, where some of the instructions happening in person and some of the instructions happening via technology. Because I don't want educators to learn one tool and then have it be a waste when we go back to normal. Like, for example, all the learning you've done on Google Meet and Zoom and stuff like that, I'm sorry to say, but someday that's going to be pretty worthless knowledge for you. Well, maybe not totally worthless, but it's not going to be a main educational tool for you anymore. Okay. And you're going to be like, thank goodness I don't have to do that anymore. But what are some technology tools that we could use in either situation? So I thought about, what are my goals as an educator? Now, before I show you these goals, I want you to know these are goals that I came up with thinking about my priorities as an educator. They are not based on any specific research. They're just based off of my 17 years. How many years has it been? I don't want to count in education, and what I think is important for our students in the classroom. What's important for me as an educator to do for my students. So your goals might be, you might have less, you might have more, you might have different ones in there, but these are the goals that I came up with, and I think we'll agree on most of them. Okay, first goal, hearing from our students. Second, engaging instruction. Not only do we want to instruct, but we want to engage them with the instruction that we do. Next, interactivity. I don't want to just send information out to my students. I want them to interact back with me in this educational setting. Next, building rapport. Especially in remote learning, it's extra important to put emphasis on this as a goal. In-person learning, I find that I didn't even have to concentrate on building rapport with my students. It happened as they were entering the room and I chatted with them, or as I was standing in the hallway and they went past me, or as we were leaving class, or in between activities as we were transitioning, or when everybody was working independently and I could chat with kids. Like, building rapport didn't need to be a focus then. It just kind of happened pretty naturally. But now in remote learning, we have to really focus on making sure we're doing it. And it always was a goal. It just wasn't a goal that I had to be super conscientious of. Okay. Next, formative assessment. It's really important that I formatively assess my students' learning to make sure they're understanding what the instruction that I'm giving to them. Okay. Next, I want to amplify my students' voices. So when my students answer questions, when they respond to things, I want to have the opportunity to make their voice be heard by more than just me as their person assessing them, whether I'm amplifying it within the classroom or even outside of the classroom in some situations. Next, feed forward. And feed forward is the word that I prefer to use for feedback. And what I mean when I say feed forward is feedback just goes back to the student. Feed forward goes back to the student and then propels what they do moving forward. So when I say feed forward, I mean it's feedback I'm giving to a student that's going to help them improve moving forward. So it's feed forward. I also want feed forward from my students to me. I want to improve what I'm providing as an instructor. So I want feed forward to happen. I want them to give feed forward to each other, feedback that propels them to do better moving forward. Okay, another goal, summative assessment. Okay, I feel slightly less strongly about this one, but this is a part of what we do as educators. I feel like I could probably get away with just formative assessment, but summative assessment has its role as well. Next, rich methods of assessment, meaning I don't want to just see multiple choice answers. I want to really know what my students are doing. I want to be able to peek into their brains as much as possible. Okay. Next, I need to be able to communicate with families. Next, social emotional needs. Okay, I need, especially in remote learning, but also in face-to-face learning, I need to make sure that my students' social emotional needs are being met, whether that means through specific instruction or just making sure that I'm confident that their needs are met and that they're doing okay. Okay. Next, content delivery. I need to deliver my content. And finally, providing opportunities for differentiation. Now, you might look at this and say like, oh, I think I would combine content delivery and engaging instruction. That's fine. Combine them if you want to. And you might think, oh, I think engaging instruction is interactive, so I'm going to combine those. Like, okay, whatever, fine. But these are the 15 goals that I identified. And so I sat down and thought, what tech tools do a lot of these things? Because there are plenty of tech tools that do some of them or one of them, but what tech tools do all of them? And a tool that only does some of them, that doesn't make it a bad tool. Like Remind, for example. Some of you might use Remind to send messages to your parents and to your families and to your students. That's a great tool, but it really only does one of these goals. That doesn't make it a bad tool, which means it's really just for communicating with families. And that's okay if that's the tool you're going to use for it. But I wanted to find, for these educators who need to learn and get up to speed on technology really fast, what are some tools they could use to do a lot, right? And the first tool that I identified was Flipgrid. Okay, so let's look at the boxes that Flipgrid checks off here. First, for those of you who have never used it before, which I'd be surprised if you hadn't, but if you haven't, Flipgrid at its core is a tool where a teacher can send out a prompt with or without video, and students can respond back to them with video. Those students' responses could then be seen by only the teacher or the teacher and their classmates too. And then they could potentially respond back to each other if they want, if the teacher wants to set it that way, or that could be turned off too. That's the core of what Flipgrid does. Okay. It also has what's called Flipgrid Shorts, which allows teachers to send out just a video that nobody's going to respond to. So it kind of hosts a video to send out to students or to parents. So it's a nice platform to put that video into, so you don't have to upload it to a website or something, or YouTube or something like that. It kind of does that work for you. Okay, so let's see what Flipgrid does for us. First of all, Flipgrid obviously helps us hear from our students. Second, we could use Flipgrid interactively, meaning I could send a video to my students and my students can interact back, and then they can interact with each other as well. Okay, Flipgrid is fantastic for building rapport. Obviously, if we're responding with video and our voices back and forth, there are plenty of opportunities for rapport if we do it well. Next, it's a fantastic formative assessment tool. Maybe not the most efficient one because it doesn't automatically grade students' videos for you, but you could watch a video and really know how well your student understands something. Okay, so it might not be the formative assessment tool I use all of the time, but it's one that when I really want to understand a kid's understanding and peek into their thinking, Flipgrid's going to be great for it. It's great for amplifying student voices because I can let their videos be seen by their classmates, by their parents, by our community, and wider than that if I have permission to do so. So it's fantastic for amplifying student voices. It's great for feed forward because when my students respond, it's really easy for me to give them feedback that could propel them moving forward. And I can give 3 types of feedback. I can give rubric feedback, I can give text-based feedback, and I can give video feedback. And actually, that text-based feedback can be public so that other classmates see it too, or it could be private, just between me and the student. And the videos too could be public between me and the student, or private between me and the student, or public so the classmates can see it too. So kind of like 5 different ways I can give feed forward to my students. Okay, they could also give me feedback that can affect the way I do things moving forward. Anytime they respond to those prompts, I could find out how well my students are understanding something or how much they liked an activity, right? I can also have them responding to each other, which gives them a way to give each other feedback that they could use moving forward as feed forward. I'm going to skip over summative assessment here, but you could probably argue that you could do summative assessment with Flipgrid too. It would just fall in this category that I just checked off, which is rich methods of assessment. So it is a potential for summative assessment, but not a standard summative assessment the way we normally think of it. It is a richer method of assessment because not only will I know, do my kids understand how glacial landforms are created or what glacial landforms there are, but I could hear them explaining how these landforms are created by glaciers, and then I truly know it. Sorry, that's what I'm currently teaching in 8th grade science. Next, it's a fantastic tool for communicating with families because I could send home those Flipgrid Shorts videos to the parents, and I could potentially even ask the parents to respond if I'm comfortable with that too. And they can even respond to students too if I want to make that happen. Okay. Next, it's great for students' social emotional needs. Number 1, because I'm connecting with the students via video. But number 2, if I'm using it right, I could use it in ways that directly relate to social emotional needs. Okay. Next, because of Flipgrid Shorts, I could deliver content through Flipgrid. And finally, students can respond with their camera on, with their camera off. They could respond with just audio. They could respond and show pictures. They could respond with stickers. They could respond with a screen recording. They could respond in lots of different ways. So it differentiates the way my kids respond. It also has what's called the immersive reader built into it. So if there's text, students could have it read aloud to them. Students can change the speed of a video when they're watching it. So there's lots of ways Flipgrid can differentiate instruction and student work. It's not perfect in accessibility features, but it's very good at them and offers lots of differentiation. So you look at Flipgrid right away here and you're like, wow, Jake, you've knocked off 13 of your 15 things. And you said you could probably do summative assessment this way. So that's 14. And I would argue you could do engaging instruction with Flipgrid too. So that's 15 different checkboxes that Flipgrid could mark off for us. And that's why this is my first of 4 MVPs for blended learning and remote learning. Now, truth be told, I'm not using Flipgrid very much this year in my classrooms, and here's why. I teach, the way my school has it set up, we teach almost completely synchronous with our students. So meaning even when we're in remote learning, it's all done by scheduled Zoom calls, okay? And there are different people believe different ways are the best way to do it, but that's what my school has decided on. So I am in front of my students via video for more than an hour a day in Zoom calls, each student. And so I don't really need to use Flipgrid a whole lot with them. I still do, but it's not one that I'm leveraging a lot in my current classroom situation because of the setup of it. And the reason I tell you that is not to like reduce your excitement about using Flipgrid. It's to remind you that just because I say, hey, this knocks off 13 of my 15 goals, doesn't mean that you need to run out and start working in it or working with it, because it might not be the tool that best suits your situation. Just like I don't think it's the tool that perfectly fits my situation. I'll show you in a couple minutes the tool that I'm using the most. Okay. Now, when I think about these educational technology tools in the classroom, this is the word that often comes up for our situation now with remote learning, the word but. And I want to talk about, before we talk about my next MVP, how we could use the word but instead of the word and. Okay, I'm sorry, use the word and instead of the word but. This goes back to a quote from a guy named Bernard Roth, who wrote a book called The Achievement Habit: Stop Wishing, Start Doing, and Take Command of Your Life. He said, when you open up the dialogue with and, your brain gets to consider how it can deal with both parts of the sentence. When you open up the dialogue with and, your brain gets to consider how it can deal with both parts of the sentence. By the way, I'm looking back at your comments there. I haven't been keeping up with the comments, so I'm doing a little peek back in the comments here. Lots of people were answering my duct tape earlier there. Thank you for confirming that duct tape fit in there. Okay. So when we do this, when we replace the word but in a sentence with the word and in our sentence, what we end up with is a lot of flexibility. For example, this is my dog, Kermit. Okay. And you can see Kermit is sitting next to his tennis ball here in this picture. Kermit loves to play fetch. It is his favorite thing in the world. Now, Kermit loves me. I'm his favorite human in the house, but he loves fetch more than he loves me. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Kermit loves to play fetch. And when I go out to mow the lawn, Kermit immediately thinks it is time for Daddy to throw the ball for me while he mows the lawn. And what I want to say is Kermit likes to play fetch, but I need to mow the lawn. Right? And that but shuts the sentence down like, sorry, Kermit, can't play fetch. I need to mow the lawn. Or sorry, lawn, can't mow you. I need to play fetch. And this is a sentence that comes up with our student, with our current setting too. I want to build rapport with my students, but we're in remote learning. Right? And that but shuts it down like, sorry, can't build rapport. Well, that's not okay. So we replace it with the word and. Kermit likes to play fetch and I need to mow the lawn. This opens my mind up to consider both possibilities. How can I mow the lawn while playing fetch? And I bought one of these tools off of Amazon. It's like 3 feet long, and I could easily reach the ball off the ground while I'm mowing. I barely have to stop my stride as I'm going along, pick up the ball, and launch it for Kermit as I go. And we get both things. The word and, I mow the lawn, and Kermit plays fetch. With Flipgrid, right? One of the things we talked about was rapport. I could build rapport and be in remote learning. It's not the ideal setting, but the word and lets me consider both parts of it. Okay, let's talk about another tool that helps out here. Another tool that helps is screencasting. Okay, the two most common tools we see used in the classroom are Screencastify and Loom. They're both great tools. I have a blog post. If you're trying to decide which one to use, I have a blog post on my site about it, where you could explore the difference between the two of them. Some educators just use the screencasting tool in Flipgrid. That's fantastic too. Some educators use Screencast-O-Matic as well. The great thing about Screencast-O-Matic is it has better options for adding captions to your video for students who might need closed captioning in your videos. And that's nice about Screencast-O-Matic too. But whatever screencasting tool you have, let's look at how it relates to these 15 goals I identified. Okay. Could I hear from my students via screencasting? Yeah, it's super easy for them to record a video and send it to me. Could I develop engaging instruction using screencasting? Yeah, if it's got my face in it, it's automatically more engaging to my students because they know me, right? We have rapport. I am their teacher. You are their teacher. So videos from you are more engaging because it's a video from you, right? Could it be interactive? We're going to skip over interactive. You can maybe argue that the students could record videos back to you and then list it as interactive. But generally, when you send out those videos, it's just a one-way exchange here. Okay. Building rapport. Can I build rapport with my students? Well, yeah, if I'm sending videos to them with my face and voice, and they're able to record videos with their face and voice, it is certainly going to increase rapport over just the series of Google Docs, right? Okay. Could I can I amplify students' voices with it? Yeah, I could take those videos and show them to their classmates, right? With student permission and if they're good enough. And I could show them outside of there. And even if I don't show them to anybody, students recording and practicing creating these videos, that amplifies student voices right there. Okay. Next, feed forward. I love recording videos to give students feedback on work. I don't always do it because I don't always have time to do it, but I know that my students are more likely to watch a video of me giving them feedback than they are to read text from me giving them feedback. So it's a great tool for feed forward. Okay. They could also do the same thing for me, right? If they could record videos back to me on certain resources that gives me feed forward to move forward. And they could use it for peer feedback to record videos going for each other. Okay. Is it a tool I could use for a rich method of assessment? Certainly. If I could use Flipgrid videos as a rich method of assessment, I could certainly use Schoology or Loom or whatever you might choose in that situation too. Okay. Flipgrid might be a little bit smoother for it, but it works in these tools as well. And by the way, if you use Screencastify, you might want to look into Screencastify Submit, which is an easy way for students to submit videos back to you. It's not quite as slick as Flipgrid. It doesn't have the interface Flipgrid does, but it puts all those videos in a folder in your Google Drive, which has some pros to that as well. Okay. It's also a great way to communicate with families, recording these videos and sending them home to families. Now, again, I could do that in Flipgrid instead, or I could do it in this tool. It really is your choice what you're more comfortable with. And finally, it's a great way to deliver content to my students, right? It's me recording videos and sending them to my kids. And you could argue also that I could differentiate with these videos because kids could watch them more than once. I could record different videos for different students. Students can slow the videos down. If I provide a transcript for my video, which isn't inherently built into either of these tools, but if I do, that provides more differentiation there. So that's my second MVP of remote or blended learning is whatever screencasting or video creating tool that you choose. And there are a lot of options out there. You can't really go wrong with them. And this is another one that I'm not using a whole lot in my classroom this year, again, because I'm doing so much synchronous instruction with my students via Zoom. So I don't need to record as many videos as I normally would in a normal setting. I still do use it some, but not as much as I used to. Okay. For my next tool, I'm going to tell you a little story here. This was me years ago when I was a STEM teacher. And after my first year of teaching STEM, or my first quarter of teaching STEM, I converted my synchronous teacher-paced course into an asynchronous, well, it all happened at the same time, but it was student-paced course. So my students came into the classroom all at the same time, but they worked through the content at a different pace, which allowed some students to move faster and some students to really take their time on the work. So it meant that I was recording lots of videos for my students, right? Because they had to watch instruction from me some way. And this was a video where I was giving students instructions on how to make their basswood bridges in class. Okay, that we were building bridges and testing bridges. And so I had 15 minutes worth of instructions for my kids, how to plan the video, how to use the X-Acto knife they were using, how to access the wood, what the regulations were for the bridges, a lot of important information, least of which planning out how they were going to use their X-Acto knife. So I got to make sure my 8th graders were being very safe with that, right? So this is one of those videos I made. And I can remember one student came up to me one day and said, Mr. Miller, I'm ready for the wood for my basswood bridge. And I said, well, great, Jesse. His name was Jesse. Jesse, show me your plan. And he said, what plan? And I said, well, Jesse, in the video, it says to go over a plan, build it in Google Drawings, show it to me. I will look at the plan. I'll check it. I'll give you some feedback. And then once you and I agree on a plan, then I'll give you the wood. He said, I didn't see anything about a plan. And I said, Jesse, did you watch the video? And he said, yeah, I watched the video. Now, obviously, Jesse had not watched the video, but he insisted he did. And I said, okay, Jesse, tell me about how I looked in the video. Now, what you got to know is at this time that I had Jesse in class, I did not have a beard. I also did not wear glasses anymore. I had LASIK eye surgery between the time the video was recorded and I was working with this student. So I said to Jesse, what did I look like in the video? And Jesse's friend was in the background going, glasses, beard, glasses, beard. But Jesse didn't hear him. And Jesse said, no, I swear I'm not making this up. Jesse said, you looked handsome. Really said that. I'll never forget that day. And I said, well, Jesse, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. But was there anything different about how I looked in that video? And he said, no, Mr. Miller, you look pretty much like you. And I said, did I have a beard in the video? And he said, Mr. Miller, you don't have a beard. I said, Jesse, in that video I did. I said, Jesse, was I wearing glasses in that video? He says, Mr. Miller, you don't wear glasses. And I said, well, Jesse, in that video, I was wearing glasses. So Jesse and I both realized something. We both had some work to do, right? Jesse had to go rewatch the video or watch the video. And I needed to find a way to make sure my students were watching those videos. And the tool that I started using was EdPuzzle. EdPuzzle let me take those videos and add questions in at different points in the video. And you can see here these green question boxes. Actually, this is an old EdPuzzle interface. I need to update this screenshot with a newer version of what it looks like. But the students stop as they go through it, and they're prompted to answer questions. And then I, as the teacher, can see, did they watch the video? How much of the video did they watch? How long did it take them? Did they rewatch any parts? And that was what I was really looking for, to make sure Jesse had watched the video. But then I also got the formative assessment piece here that I wasn't even bargaining for in this situation. I could see how well Jesse understood the video so that I could also correct some of his misconceptions before he started building his bridge and support him better by using that. So the third MVP is EdPuzzle. If you're using video in your classroom, I believe it's almost essential that you're using EdPuzzle with that video. So you take these videos that either you make or you find online, and you add questions into students to formatively assess them and to help them reflect on the things that they're being asked to do. So does EdPuzzle help my instruction be more engaging? Yes, right? Because not only are they hearing from me, they're being forced to think about it and respond to it. Is it interactive? Yes, because they're responding back to the video. Okay. Does it help with formative assessment? Yes, because I can understand where my kids are understanding things or not understanding things. I can really peek into their learning as they watch this video. Okay. Does it help with feed forward? Yeah. Anytime I'm getting good, easy to digest data back from my students about their learning, I can easily give them feedback. You can build some into EdPuzzle to automatically respond with, or you could just respond later to the students. Okay. Does it help them give me feedback? Yeah. I could ask them questions like, how well do you understand that? How clear was that to you? I could ask them questions like that, or just by seeing this formative assessment data, that's feed forward that I could use moving forward, right? Could I use it as a content delivery tool? Yes, certainly I could deliver my content through it. Okay. Now, this adds in lots of things, meets lots of goals, but it skips over from some of them. It's not really a great tool for hearing from students. Yeah, they could respond with text, but that's it. It's not really a fantastic tool for building rapport, although it could be a video from me that they're responding to with text, so that could certainly build rapport. It's not really an amplifying student voices tool because I'm the one making the video, not them, but I could have them make the EdPuzzles, right? Okay. It's not really a great feed forward tool because they're not responding to each other, but I could do some things that build in some opportunities for them to give feedback to each other. It's not a perfect summative assessment tool because I don't think most people would turn a video into a summative assessment. You maybe could argue you could. I wouldn't call it a rich method of assessment either because they're really just responding with text-based answers. Okay. Not fantastic for communicating with families or social emotional needs, but it does hit a lot of these things for me. And if I'm using video, it does a lot of important things for me. Okay. Before I move forward, I do want to point out that EdPuzzle also could be replaced by a couple of other tools. There's one out there called PlayPosit. I prefer EdPuzzle over PlayPosit mostly because I think most of PlayPosit's good features are in their paid version, but it's a good platform overall too. And Nearpod recently added the ability to embed questions into videos. So if you're already using Nearpod, maybe it doesn't make sense to learn to use EdPuzzle. Maybe just keep doing this in Nearpod. That's okay too. Now, whenever I'm making these kinds of decisions, I'm using what I call an E plus R equals O mindset. I've got to put on my bracelet here, actually. Here's my E plus R equals O bracelet I try to wear every day. Some days I forget. There it is, my E plus R equals O bracelet. Now, E plus R equals O came originally from a guy named Jack Canfield, who was a motivational speaker and one of the authors of the original Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And he was the first guy to do E plus R equals O, but a lot of speakers talk about it now. And they propose it as a way to solve any problem that you approach in your life, right? And I disagree with that. I think some problems are not the same, right? Some problems are not created equal and cannot be solved. But I try to always look at problems with this mindset, okay? Look at what's my event, what's the outcome that I'm trying to get to, and what response gets me there. I have no control over the event. I have an outcome that I'm trying to get to. What response will help me get there, right? And so in this situation with Jesse, my event was my students aren't all watching the videos that I'm recording. And my outcome was I want my students to watch the videos. So my response was, I'm going to start using EdPuzzle, or it might be, I'm going to start using Nearpod. Okay. Before we move on to the next tool, Frederick asked the question here. It says Clever doesn't offer EdPuzzle. So how are we supposed to use EdPuzzle if the district doesn't offer it in Clever? Well, so EdPuzzle can be used without Clever, but there are some situations where a district might say, you can't use a certain tool because of privacy settings or payment or whatever it might be, and that's the situation. Frederick, if you need a solution for that that doesn't work in this situation, let me know. It looks like Nearpod, as you said, there would be your solution here that would substitute in there. But there are some other ways. If, for example, EdPuzzle and Nearpod just aren't an option to an educator, or Screencastify and Loom that I mentioned earlier, or Flipgrid earlier, there are always some alternatives we could talk about, and I'm happy to talk to people about those, but it seems like Frederick's got his already there too. Okay, last MVPs here. Okay, so we could see, do I really need another tool here? No, I really don't, right? I've really marked off all of these boxes with multiple tools, and you could see why I said we don't need all of them. But the last two MVPs I would include are Pear Deck and Nearpod. We've talked a little bit about Nearpod already. Pear Deck is a similar tool. They're competing tools. I love both of them. The district I'm at uses Pear Deck, so I'm more experienced with Pear Deck. But because I'm an EdTech nerd, I try Nearpod too and kind of evaluate both of them. I really feel like you can't go wrong with either of them. If you're curious, I do have an infographic comparing the two of them. So if anybody's like, which one should I use, Jake? Reach out. I could share that that infographic. It's in a draft form right now. It's not quite ready to go prime time yet, but I'd be happy to share it with you. I think they're both great. And what they both are is you build a lesson with slides and content, but also with things for students to interact too. And this is the tool that I'm using the most in my current remote instruction, because I could deliver a synchronous lesson and hear back from my students right then and there. And not just some of them, but all of them I could see responding in Pear Deck is what I'm using, but it could be in Nearpod as well. And then if I want to, I can also do those lessons as asynchronous lessons that any of the students could watch, or I'm sorry, compete in at any time they can complete. So I love using these tools in my setting. Okay. And I also do this tool last because Flipgrids can be put in a Nearpod or Pear Deck. Flipgrid shorts can be put in a Nearpod or Pear Deck. EdPuzzles can be put in a Nearpod or Pear Deck. Screencastifys or Looms or Screencast-O-Matics can be put in Nearpod or Pear Deck. So this is kind of the crown on top of the tool, where you can put all of those different tools into there and use it. As Kathy points out in the chat by there, some districts use PlayPosit instead of EdPuzzle, and that's fine too. They're tools that perform the same basic function, taking a video and building some formative assessment into it. There are some great features in PlayPosit, especially in the paid version, that in some ways are better than EdPuzzle, but EdPuzzle is the one that I currently use the most. Both fantastic tools. Let's talk really quickly about Pear Deck and Nearpod before we wrap this up. Okay. Can they help me hear from my students? Yeah, I ask them questions. They could respond with text or with drawings or by dragging an icon on the screen or with multiple choice. Or if I build in something like Flipgrid, they could respond with video. So definitely I could hear from my students. Can it make my instruction more engaging? Yeah, I can. Not only what I send to them could be more engaging because I can embed web-based things into it and videos into it, but also they're interacting with it, which is the next one, which means that it's more engaging because it's also interactive. Can it help me build rapport with my students? Yeah, if I use it correctly, I could certainly build in questions and activities and fun little games and things like that help me build rapport with my students. One of my favorite things, actually, I should say one of my students' favorite things that I do with Pear Deck this school year is I often start class off with a complete the squiggle drawing. I think I got this idea from Amanda Sandoval originally, but I draw a little squiggle using the scribble tool in Google Slides, and then kids have a few minutes while I'm taking attendance to turn that squiggle into a drawing of their own. And then we look at them, and kids just think it's a blast. And that builds rapport with the students that I could then leverage in other situations. Okay. Are Pear Deck and Nearpod good for formative assessment? Yes. As I'm teaching, I could find out how well my class understands a concept and which students understand and which students don't. And that, by the way, depends on paid and free versions. It's different for both tools, okay? Can I use it to amplify student voices? I could, right? Because I could take a student's response and make it so that all the other kids in the class see it. So I could say, wow, Susie had this answer. Look at this fantastic answer from Susie. And that's amplifying my student's voice. Okay. Feed forward. Yeah, I can give my students lots of feedback through Pear Deck and Nearpod because of the formative assessment I'm getting out of there that can then propel them forward. Okay. Could they give me feedback? Yeah, I could ask them questions mid-lesson. Actually, Pear Deck at the end of the lesson asks, how did this lesson go for you? Right. And then I know how they felt about it. But I can also ask other questions during it and exit tickets and things like that. Okay. I skipped over giving feedback from student to student. I don't think there's really a built-in way to do it. You could probably come up with some hacks to make that happen though. Summative assessment. I think you could do a summative assessment in Pear Deck or Nearpod, right? You don't have to put content into it. It could just be a series of questions. It probably wouldn't be my preferred tool for a summative assessment, but it could do all the things a summative assessment does. So I guess there's no reason that you can't use this as a summative assessment tool. Okay. And the nice thing here is if you're already using Pear Deck for your lessons and you don't want to go learn EdSite or EduElastic or whatever for a summative assessment, maybe use Pear Deck or Nearpod, right? Because then you don't have to learn to use a new tool. I think that's an option that we can consider too. Okay. Could it be a more rich method of assessment? Well, yeah, they could draw a response. They could type a response. They can respond with a video if I embed a Flipgrid. So yeah, I certainly think this gives me lots of opportunities for rich methods of assessment. Can't really help me with communicate with families, but it could be huge for social emotional needs. Number one, because I am hearing from my students throughout the lesson. Number two, because both tools have some social emotional needs lessons available. And number three, Pear Deck, at least at the beginning, it asks my kids how they're feeling, and they respond with a smiley face, a frowny face, or like a straight line face. And then I always respond to my frowny face kids and ask, hey, I saw that you put a frowny face. Is everything okay? Normally they say, oh, I clicked on an accident, which I think is actually them covering up for it because they don't want to talk about it. But I think that at the very least, if they know that I care enough to ask them, that's got to support their social emotional needs, right? They're both great tools for content delivery, obviously, and they both offer some opportunities for differentiation. Both of them work with the immersive reader when there's text on screen. Both of them allow me to add audio in as the teacher if my lessons are asynchronous, so that they can click on it and hear the text read to them in the teacher's voice or instructions in the teacher's voice. And they both, there are ways to get closed captioning to happen within them in a live version of the lesson. Okay, so those are my 4 MVPs of blended learning and remote learning based on educational duct tape mindset. Do I love other tools like Scratch and Book Creator and Quizzes and Quizlet and Kahoot and Gimkit and I don't even know all these other tools? Yes, but I picked these 4 because when I looked at these 15 goals, these were the ones that hit on a lot of them. That doesn't mean they're the only ones. That doesn't mean they're the ones you should use, nor does it mean you should use all of them. It just means that these are 4 tools. Now, obviously, Pear Deck and Nearpod I'm counting as one, and Screencastify and Loom I'm counting as one as well. But these are 4 tools that can hit on all of those based on what I call an educational duct tape mindset. And again, that is the idea that educational technology is at its most useful when it is not the goal of the lesson, but a tool used to solve a problem or meet a goal. And remember, I like to think about these things with E plus R equals O in mind. What's my event? Remote learning, hybrid learning, right? What's the outcome I'm trying to get to? And those are those 15 goals. And what responses can I use for them? Okay, what response will get me to there? Okay. Again, my name is Jake Miller. Here is access to these slides, jakemiller.net/4MVPs. There is my contact information. If you have questions, if you'd like to ask me more, can you send me that comparison between Pear Deck and Nearpod? Or I don't have access to this tool. What tool can I use in place of it? Or, hey, I started using this tool because you said it and it went great. I would love, 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 love to hear about it or to support you in it. So please feel free to reach out with any of this contact information here. And also, please feel free to go to jakemiller.net/4MVPs to enter into that giveaway there. Okay. By the way, I'm going to look to questions over here. M. Harrison says, I'd like to know about that squiggle. If you send me a message, I could send you a picture of one of them. But essentially, I use the scribble tool under lines in Google Slides. I just do a little scribble on the screen, and then I do it as a drawing slide. And then students complete the drawing with it. Tara said, how have you adjusted the 4 MVPs when you notice lack of student engagement or student participation? So I'm maintaining the same set of MVPs here, but this is where I think about that E plus R equals O, right? My event is I'm noticing that they're still not engaging or participating as much. And so what outcome, my outcome is to get them to engage and participate more. What response can I use? And that I think is why I've leveled up my use of Pear Deck, because I could see live in class which kids are participating, which kids aren't. And I could see which activities they're responding most positively to through it too. So that kind of is just those recalibrations we do as teachers. As we notice something, we kind of we change our flight path, we change our plan and say, like, what's going to help me in that situation? Oh, and there we've got a super secret password there. Am I allowed to say it out loud?
You are allowed to say it out loud.
Now, for those of you who watch or listen to the Educational Duct Tape podcast, you know that there's a super secret word in the Educational Duct Tape podcast, and I have to say it in my whisper voice. I don't know why, I just do. The super secret password for session 5 is tenacity. So go to whatever link you're supposed to go to and type in tenacity.
I was really hoping you were going to do that.
Right.
Thank
you. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them and respond to them. Last but not least, before you guys go, as a parent, I want to tell you that I'm grateful for what you do as educators. And as an educator myself, I'm proud of the time that you're putting in on a Saturday right now to do even better for your students. So thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. You are awesome.
Thanks so much, Jake. We appreciate all the